Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you here today, albeit virtually, because you are the future of our industry. You are the future of bringing life-enhancing, life-saving solutions to people all over the world. And a key stakeholder in your journey in the future will be investors. And I don't know about you, but I've always been curious to know why investors put big money behind entrepreneurs. And unequivocally, they say, beyond skills, knowledge, capabilities, and experience, the one thing they look for, the one thing, is the ability of that entrepreneur, that innovator, to walk through walls. That's a term they actually use, walk through walls. Because the road to doing something new is filled with many hurdles. There are setbacks, there are sacrifices, and there are disappointments. And the only way you can power through all of those to reach the finish line is if you're compelled by a powerful why. Why are you here? And why are you doing this? In fact, Mark Twain says there are only 2 days that really matter in someone's life. The first is, you guessed it, I'm sure you did, the day that you were born. And the second most important day in your life is the day you figure out why. Why were you put here on this planet? Some of us are born knowing what we want to be in life. We're going to be a doctor, a firefighter, a policeman. And some of us have to go through something to really understand our why. In fact, I had to go through something to understand my why. And that was the beginning of Johnson & Johnson Innovation JLABS. So let me take you through my story. My story starts out in Beijing. It's about the mid-90s. I'm in my mid-20s, and I think I have the world by the tail. I have everything I thought I wanted. I have an amazing career trajectory. I'm seeing the world, and I'm making what I considered to be a lot of money at the time. And this was important to me because I came from a very humble place. You see, I was born at the end of a little dirt road in an 864 square foot home in northern Canada. And I was in this home with my 5 brothers and my 3 sisters and my 2 parents. And more importantly, this home had no running water, no plumbing, and no electricity. So as you might imagine, particularly in the winters, life could be quite challenging. So from the time I was a little girl, I was bound and determined I was not going to be poor anymore. So here I was, I thought I'd made it. And then one day, just before I'm about to jet off to my next location, I go to an international Beijing university for a conference, and I'm walking through the woods and I get bit by a bug, literally bit by a bug. Within 24 hours, I land in the International Health Clinic. I wasn't feeling so hot. And about 24 hours after that, the doctors came in and said, "We're so sorry that there's nothing more we can do for you, and that you should call your family and say your goodbyes." And there's something about that conversation that happened in my head that night when I wasn't sure I was going to wake up the next day that changed me. And I was struck by the irony that here I was in Beijing working for a telecoms company trying to figure out how to order a soda from the vending machine with our cell phones. And yet I'm here in this hospital and you cannot take a blood test and figure out what I have? How is it possible that all this money and press and talent is going over here to something that now seems so frivolous when a pretty basic human healthcare gap existed? And how could I have been spending my time on something like that over here in the tech industry when my life depended on some pretty basic things in the healthcare industry? And so I vowed that night that if I got the chance to stay here on this planet, that's what I would commit my life to, making healthcare just as advanced, just as attractive of an industry for the brightest and best talent and investors to get into. And so clearly, I made it, but I kept my promise. And I quit my very comfortable corporate job. I sold everything I had. And I moved to San Francisco, the home of biotech. Now, I wasn't a scientist. I was going to figure out how to cure HIV or hepatitis C or cancer myself, but I was a good business person. I thought that maybe if I could apply my business lens from the tech industry to the life science industry, maybe, just maybe, I could see a problem that no one else had seen before. And so that's what I did. And quickly, in comparing these industries, it became apparent what the problem was. You see, in the tech industry, you can give a couple of guys a couple computers and a couple $100,000, and a couple years later, they can turn around and sell that project, that company, to a big company like Microsoft, Yahoo, Google for $200 million. Fast and easy, just like that. In the life science industry, before you even turn the lights on, you need to get specialized facilities, capital equipment, a specialized ops team, and then even then, it takes you 8 to 12 years and billions of dollars to get a drug to market. So from the outside looking in, who in their right minds would want to start a life science company? By the time you ever get it to market, if you ever do, you're so diluted that the only thing you're making is a difference. And folks, that's just not sustainable. And which investor would you rather be? The investor who puts $500,000 into Instagram and sells it 2 years later for what, $1 billion? Or an investor who puts hundreds of millions of dollars into an oncology play that has every likelihood of failing, even in phase 3. So that's the problem we needed to solve. We needed to make it just as fast and cheap and easy to start a life science company as it was to start a tech company. So how are we going to solve that problem? Well, I went back again to what I knew. And when I was with this big company, I could land in any part around the world and within a year or 2 years get my project or product up and running because there was facilities, there was equipment, there was a ops team, there was legal, sales and marketing team. So all I had to do was focus on my product, on my project. And so I thought, well, what if I could do the same thing for early stage life company? What if I could create a big company infrastructure for early stage life science companies? So I went out and I raised $6 million. I got my very first facility up and running. It was 36,594 square feet. That number will be forever ingrained in my memory from every spreadsheet and contract I put it into. And then I made half of that space all common space, common business space, so people could come together in a community and collaborate with each other, but also common equipment space that was filled with millions of dollars of equipment that would typically need an entrepreneur to go out and raise millions of dollars to get access to. I also hired an operations team to take care of the day-to-day activities for the company so they could focus on the science. And I hired a business services team so they could do everything from as basic but not inconsequential as help a scientist turn their idea into a company, where we'd have educational programs so business people could learn about science and scientists could learn about business, and a place where we could bring funders to the table so technology could meet financing. And so how did we do? Well, in the first 5 years, our companies did over $1 billion worth of financing, which back in those days was pretty remarkable. But more importantly than that, for me, is that our companies said that they could do in 8 months what had taken them 4 years to do before. So were we successful? So far, so good. Had we changed the scale of the problem in innovation in life sciences? Not even close. To do that, we would have to expand. And so I decided to move to San Diego and to create our very next facility. And that's when I met Johnson & Johnson. And in Johnson & Johnson, I met a company that had the same passion for the pursuit of patient solutions I had only seen in small companies before. And we realized that if we put our respective strengths together, their global scale and healthcare expertise and my innovation model, that maybe, just maybe, we could change the scale of the problem in life science innovation. And so we created our very first model, 2.0, what I did before, and we called it JLABS. And we did it in San Diego, and it did everything we wanted it to do, and so we started expanding all over North America. With our latest announcement being our JLABS in Washington, D.C. Here we partnered with Children's National to regentrify the old Walter Reed Medical Center, but we'll bring it back to its original purpose of serving patients. And this will be truly bench to bedside. So from JLABS to Device Innovation Labs to a Genomics Research Institute to Virginia Tech to having a clinical care facility on board. Not only that, but we decided to partner with BARDA, which is a part of the U.S. government's Health and Human Services Division, which is focused on finding medical countermeasures to fight biological, radiological, nuclear, and chemical attacks in addition to pandemics and epidemics. And we decided to partner together to create a new entity called Blue Knight that would focus on anticipating the future health security threats for our nation and indeed around the world, to activate the global innovation community to find solutions for those threats. And once we found the ones that would work, we would then amplify those around the world. So post the United States, we also created JLABS in Europe at our campus for our pharmaceutical division, Janssen, and we also created a JLABS in Shanghai, which was truly very meaningful for me given my story started in China. So we realized that innovation truly exists everywhere. And so we needed to create a new vehicle that allowed people from all over the world to put their ideas to use for major healthcare challenges. So we created the Quickfire Challenges, where people could apply their novel solutions to all sorts of healthcare challenges that were coming from all over the world. So how have we done so far? Well, our new scorecard is very different than it was before. We now have about 673 companies on board, of which is public information. Those companies have done over $40 billion worth of deals. To do that, 36 companies have IPO'd, 20 of them have been acquired, and more than 150 of them have collaborations with J&J. Just as important as that is the fact that 30% of our companies are women-led and 29% are minority-led. So why is this working? Well, it's doing everything we wanted it to do. Companies can get started faster and easier. They are connected to partners so they can design their companies well from the beginning, and they can get to a go or no-go decision sooner. And just as important as that, instead of investors putting $10 million into one company that only has a 10% chance of making it, investors can now put $1 million into 10 different companies, and one of them is sure to make it. And what does it do for J&J? Well, it allows us to build a pipeline where the best entrepreneurs are attracted to this model because it makes basic business sense, and it allows us to live with each other. So we get to know the team and the technology better. And when we get to know each other, then we can create the best deal terms to create that win-win relationship for both of us. And so we have created a lot of deals over time, but most importantly, these are customized deals for the companies based on what we want to do together, how we want to impact lives. So how does this work in reality? Let me tell you the story of two young guys who started a company called Arcturus. Now, these two young guys had been working actually for a big biotech company and thought the only way they could have a meaningful impact for patients was if they started a company. But who were they? They were just two ordinary Joes. In fact, the CEO's name is Joe. But within 6 months of JLABS coming to San Diego, where they lived, they decided to go to all the educational programs, and before you knew it, with only $50,000 saved between the two of them, they decided to quit their jobs and start a company and apply to JLABS. Now, they were working on an RNAi technology platform going after rare diseases. That wasn't in our strategic areas of interest, but they had the very special secret sauce. They were so passionate about what they wanted to do. We knew that if we could give them things like coaching from our Biotech Center of Excellence, that they would indeed walk through walls. And they did. They created this amazing company. We decided to do a no strings attached, no money collaboration, where if they proved out the data they were hoping to do, that we could validate it, and that would allow them to raise financing, which is what happened. They raised $13 million. But then they needed a big deal, so we decided to put them in front of our heads of R&D. And at that time, our head of IDV, infectious disease vaccines, said this is exactly the missing piece we've been looking for hepatitis C. So we did a multiple $100 million deal with these guys on that platform. Now, these guys still have that power of why around rare diseases. And so they came to us and said, how do we do this? How do we have an impact for people in this space? And so we then went to our commercial team. We figured out where their technology would apply best and which companies were in that space that needed that kind of technology. And before long, they ended up doing a $1.6 billion deal with Ultragenics. So from the time they quit their jobs, or $50,000 between the two of them, to the time they did about $2 billion worth of deals was 2.5 years. And that's tech time in life sciences. So now my question to you is this: why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing? So we have a very limited time on this planet, and it's so important that we figure out what we are meant to do. And listen, it could be something big. It could be coming up with a cure for cancer for kids, or it could be something as simple as curing loneliness in communities around the world. And listen, we're seeing that having a massive impact right now with COVID-19. It doesn't matter what you choose to focus on. All that matters is that you care so much about it that you're willing to walk through walls to do it. And listen, you're not alone. I understand what it's like. And I know that it's going to be hard for you. You know, as an entrepreneur or as a person trying to make change happen in a big company, I can tell you that there have been some very difficult moments. There have been times when I've been down on my knees and just think I can't do it anymore. I'm ready to throw in the towel. And then I think back to that night in my hospital room, when all I had left was to hope and pray that somebody out there was fighting for me. And then I pick myself up and I dust myself off and I keep on going. So that takes a lot of courage. And you know, they say that life expands or contracts in direct proportion to your courage. To pick something that you really, really care about, and to keep at it and to get through every challenge, every hurdle, every wall until you make a difference. Listen, not just the people out there that are going to feel it, you're going to feel it too. I wish you the best of luck.